Hello, I'm Mary Kay Devine, Director of Community Initiatives at Women Employed. I'm joined today by Carrie Thomas, the Associate Director of the Chicago Jobs Council, and it's our pleasure to welcome you to today's meeting of the Pathways to Careers Network. And we are thrilled to have such a large crowd today. I've got to say, to everybody online, this was one of the strongest reactions, biggest supports. We think we enticed you by having a cute title, thanks to Carrie, Ready, Set, WIOA, and putting the acronym WIOA. You can kind of put WIOA in anything nowadays and people will line up to hear about it. So before we dive into the meeting agenda today, let me review some webinar housekeeping items with you. During the presentation, the phone lines will be muted. We have a very full agenda today, but we always include breaks in the presentation for your questions. You'll see the chat window in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen will be open throughout. You can always type questions into the chat window anytime during our presentations. You can continue to use the chat window feature after the presentations, but you can also use the button at the top left of your screen to, quote, raise your hand. That way we'll know that you want to ask a question over the phone lines. We'll also have a couple opportunities for you today to share your thoughts through interactive polling questions. And at the end of the session, a very brief survey will pop up. It'll just take you a minute to respond. As you heard when you entered, this webinar is being recorded today, and as always, we send out links to the recording and PowerPoint slides through our Blackboard newsletter, our Workforce Education and Training newsletter. Just one more note. If you need any technical assistance, we really encourage you to contact ReadyTalk, our webinar service provider, at 1-800-843-9166. They are awesome, and they answer within 2 dials. So, let's set the context for today's conversation. As most of us know, Illinois has an urgent need to improve adult transitions into college and careers. We always take a few minutes at the beginning of our conversations to tell you about the Pathways to Careers Network. By 2020, 67% of Illinois adults will require a college degree or certificate. Yet, 3 million Illinois adults do not have education that goes beyond high school. And as a result of this skills gap, out of 100 future jobs, projections show that 24 could go unfilled. To address this skills gap, Women Employed in the Chicago Jobs Council launched the Pathways to Careers Network in 2012 as an initiative to increase college and career success for adult learners with low basic skills. The Pathways to Careers Network advances the missions of both of our organizations. For more than 40 years, Women Employed has been mobilizing people and organizations to expand educational and employment opportunities for America's working women. And for more than 30 years, the Chicago Jobs Council has worked with its members to ensure access to employment and career development, career advancement opportunities for people living in poverty. We always like to give folks a chance to confirm your status of membership. If you think you're already on the list, click the second button, and to stay on the list, click the first. We'll just leave this open for 1 minute. Okay. A couple more responses coming in. And the, membership, we have a big tent here at the Pathways to Careers Network. And so if you participate in one of our webinars, we always keep you on the list, we'll send you the newsletter, and we'll always invite you to future webinars to keep you informed and connected with your peers in the field. Thanks, everybody. Okay. So, as I said, we have a really robust agenda for today. The goal for today's meeting, as you can see on your screen, we're bringing together partners from across the education and workforce field to discuss how we ensure specifically adult learners. As you notice, we didn't just throw WIOA in the title of today's invitation, but adult was very intentionally also included in the meeting title and agenda. So we're focusing on how we ensure adult learners will develop the skills they need to access college and careers in the context of the recent federal legislation with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, formerly WIA, currently WIOA. Today's meeting, we'll review the basics. We're really fortunate to have Jennifer K. Foster, the Associate Vice President for Adult Education and Workforce Development and State GED Administrator from the Community College Board, who will share her perspective on where we've come on developing career pathways in Illinois and share her viewpoints on the challenges and opportunities afforded by WIOA. We are also joined by Judy Mortrud. She's recently taking the position as the Director of the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways for the Center for Law and Social Policy in Washington, D.C., and she'll discuss how the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways can be a resource to help our state specifically implement WIOA.
Okay, hello everyone. It's Carrie Thomas from CJC. So I want to take a couple minutes to just kind of remind some of you who are on the webinar and tell those of you who are on the webinar for the first time some of the things that the network was up to in the last year and kind of positioned us for this conversation about career pathways. So we really spent the last year kind of thinking about what our collective voice would be and what the priorities should be for adult learners. And so we did get information from all of you and others in the field through a survey. We also did several, like 2 or 3 different feedback sessions because the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education at the U.S. Department of Labor was taking input for their National Action Plan on low-skilled adults, and so we collected input from the field on that and developed some recommendations which we submitted to them. And then we had a couple of meetings and a webinar to draft a policy agenda. So you can see on this slide, you can link to that agenda. What the highlights are there, and obviously career pathways are very central to those, as well as really a recommendation that Illinois have a framework that we use for career pathways, and that it's very inclusive of adults who need to get on a career pathway. That policy agenda was released in the early fall, and so was available during the gubernatorial election, and so we tried to get that message to those campaigns as well. So on our last webinar, we discussed a couple of things. We discussed really how to leverage this momentum at the federal level on career pathways policy, because even before WIOA was passed, where career pathways is just central to that legislation and is kind of scattered in many different sections of the legislation, we really felt like we were all seeing a lot of attention to career pathways at the federal level. So in policy statements, there was a request for information about career pathways that came from the Department of Labor. There have been a number of reports that have come at the federal level about what the best practices are in the field, what job-driven training is, and career pathways is really embedded in there as well. So we have been really, we've discussed opportunities to strengthen Illinois career pathways policy and opportunities for advocates to advance the federal policy opportunities. So since our last webinar, Congress did pass the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So this was a long time coming, so I think probably anybody who's been involved with WIA realizes that it's been, I think, about 9 or 10 years since it should have been reauthorized, and it kind of took that long. So here's just a snapshot of what happened. So first of all, it was signed into law in July. It had bipartisan support, bicameral support. The final legislation was put together by a bipartisan, bicameral kind of committee or working group in the background. And it very much aligns with the White House's vision, so the President's vision for job training, and then the Vice President's report, the Ready to Work report that came out. So this actually might be the only thing that's happened in recent years at the national level, the only policy accomplishment that was bicameral, bipartisan, and aligned with administration priorities. So moving to the next slide, I would just say the big overview, for those of you who aren't familiar, is that WIOA has 4 core programs or core titles. So Title I is what we often refer to as the WIA program. So Title I is Adult Dislocated Worker and Youth Programming that currently in Illinois is administered by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Title II is Adult Education and Family Literacy, administered by the Illinois Community College Board. Title III is what we fondly refer to as Wagner-Pizer, or the Employment Service, which is administered and run by the Illinois Department of Employment Security. And then Title IV is vocational rehabilitation, which in Illinois is at the Illinois Department of Human Services. So these are 4 titles, and in Illinois, 4 different state agencies that will be working on implementation. So another overview is that it's really important to recognize that what happened in WIOA is that they really listened to and saw what the best practices were in the field. And now those are enshrined in law. Some of them are suggested, some of them are required, but it's really important to note that some of the things that have been going on in the field are now really there in the law, and we hope to see strong regulations to support that. And we really feel like Illinois and local areas in Illinois are pretty well positioned for implementation. So a couple of things. One of the things that's very important and is kind of all over this legislation is the role of partnerships. And that's not just partnerships between organizations in the field, but that's partnerships amongst administrators, that's partnerships from the state to the local level, and that's partnerships with private sector actors like employers and community organizations. The other thing that's important is it's not just about jobs, so it's not just about getting employment and being retained in employment, but it's really about career pathways. So helping people get the education they need as a first step onto an educational pathway, or get on the pathway and complete a pathway right away. And that there's all that direction is very clear in the law. And there will be measures that reward providers for helping people get skill gains and helping people get on a pathway. The other thing that is a best practice in the field is sector strategies. So by sector strategies, we mean workforce programs and training programs that are really driven by the needs of an industry sector. Another best practice that's now in the law is what is referred to in the law as work-based training, but that is really what that means. I don't think we know the full details of what that means, but what is mentioned is kind of soup to nuts, everything where you're learning on the job. So on-the-job training, paid internships, paid work experience of other kinds, transitional jobs, a wide range of options for work-based training. And then lastly, another best practice is really the idea of using consumer reports and program comparison to really understand who's doing well and who's not doing well, and getting job seekers to the right set of services that they need. So I wanted to just give an overview of kind of what it was really clear Congress wants to see. So this is in the legislation, but also I think in some of the deliberations leading up. Some of our friends nationally have pointed out that these are some of the things that Congress was very concerned with. So alignment of systems. So that's not surprising, but in the face of a lot of federal budget cuts, there was potential for some what we would call draconian sort of merger of programs, but really alignment is what they want to see, so avoiding duplication. Increased access and opportunities. So there's always been a challenge for job seekers with very low skills or adults with very low skills in our systems, because the measure of performance was simply employment, so there tended to be creaming. But it's very clear that Congress wants these core programs and the system as a whole to be able to serve individuals who have challenges in the labor market. And then increased attainment of recognized post-secondary credentials. So this gets back to the fact that the focus is on career pathways. So making sure not that people just get a job or stay in a job, but increase their skills and get credentials that have value in the labor market. And then finally, what I think was always true in WIA but is reaffirmed in WIOA, making sure that employers are getting the skilled workers that they need, so that we are developing and helping people get to training and education that are going to get them credentials that are in demand. So this just shows the President's job-driven checklist, which was in the Ready to Work report. And you can see this reflects what I kind of just outlined. related to best practices and also related to what Congress wants. But it's just a reminder of the really strong position that we're in with this law, because it's really, there's really quite a bit of agreement. So employer engagement, earn and learn, that's just another, from our perspective, that's just another term for work-based training. Measurement matters, so wanting to make sure we have good outcomes. Stepping stones, another nice way to say career pathways. And then I would just note regional partnerships, because again, the partnerships aren't just about partnerships on the ground in the field, but also just partnerships at the administrative and systems level. Okay, so again, we are very excited to have these experts with us today. So Mary Kay kind of gave a brief introduction of Jennifer and Judy, but I would also just like to mention that Jennifer's been with ICCB for 14 years and in the field for close to 25 years, but she also has a national leadership role with the National Adult Education Professional Development Consortium and the National Council of State Directors of Adult Ed. So she chairs each of those, and I think we are really lucky to have that in Illinois, because she knows a lot about what's happening in other states and really has her ear to the ground on, and we can learn very quickly about federal developments as well. And while Judy is new at class, she is also not new to the field. She has over 30 years of experience in adult basic education, I believe both direct service and at a state level. And so she, for those of you who are familiar with the Shifting Gears Initiative, she directed the Fast Track Adult Career Pathways Initiative in Minnesota. So one thing I want to note is that we will open the lines for questions. Jennifer's going to go first, so after she's done, we'll open the line for questions, and then again after Judy is through. But don't forget, you can also submit questions and comments through the chat, so that if you are worried that you'll lose your question before questions open, just go ahead and put it in the chat and we'll have it there. All right, so Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you to both CJC and Women Employed for the Pathways to Career Network. I think it's very good that we can share and update each other on issues as it relates to WIOA or just career pathways in general. And today I want to really just kind of focus in on a few areas. I'm going to talk about the adult career pathway efforts that have been happening in the state, just to give you a summary and overview of where we've been. Also, I would like to focus on some of the challenges that the WIOA law will prompt for us, as well as some of the opportunities. And I think that within everything you can look at those opportunities that may exist. And then I'll close with a few dates, key dates that I think you should be aware of. And understanding that all of this is subject to change. Things often change very quickly, and as I go through the slides, I will sort of let you know a little bit about those changes. I first want to start off, we've mentioned that Judy worked as a part of the Shifting Gears Initiative, as did Illinois. We started this whole venture with career pathways through the Illinois Shifting Gears Initiative. And we focused in on policies, really looking at those policies that could prevent adult learners from getting into a career pathway. One of those policies that we focused on was coming up with a common definition throughout the state of Illinois. So we brought together workforce, we brought together adult ed, career and technical education, community colleges, business and industry, to get that input, their input into the policies that exist. And what we came up with was a very good bridge definition designed to move low-skilled adults into career pathway programs. And there are three core critical elements of a bridge program, and that is, number one, contextualization. And the contextualization of curriculum in embedding occupational specific terminology into basic skills instruction. giving an overall understanding of what a specific occupation or career pathway would look like. Then there is the career development or career awareness piece, trying to make individuals aware of the opportunities that may exist throughout, for example, the healthcare profession. The third component is transition services, transition and support services. And through those areas, we're trying to make key connections to post-secondary education and training or into employment. And we think that these three things are very critical. So as we were taking a look at those 6 policies within the Shifting Gears initiative, it was very important that we focus on many things. Another initiative that we have in our state is the Illinois Career Pathways Initiative. And I consider this a part of the adult career pathways because any individual that's involved in any integrated or bridge program that individuals take simultaneously with their basic skills, if they go into a career technical education program, an adult learner or adult career pathway, these individuals are career and technical education students. So we wanted to pull that as a part of this discussion. And what we do is we look at the foundation of programs of study as a part of this curriculum, and looking at secondary to post-secondary, and also looking at adult education to post-secondary as well. We do a lot of work within the community college systems with workforce and business and industry partnerships so that we connect employers and students to the jobs that are prevalent within our local communities. The next area is that during this time within Shifting Gears initiative, we developed a strategic plan called Creating Pathways for Adult Learners. And as a part of that, there was a need to develop clearer pathways for adult learners that set them on a journey to be successful. And we really focused in on our vision. And the vision for adult education was adult education as a foundation of a career pathway system that prepares adult learners for economic self-sufficiency. And so those are the things that we wanted to keep in mind. We wanted to have a clear direction. We wanted to have quality instruction. We wanted targeted support for achieving adult learner goals. And we also wanted a mechanism by which we can further the education of our students, further the training, as well as getting them to sustainable employment. And to do that, we needed multiple entry points. We needed to embed stackable certificates, industry-recognized credentials, basic certificates, and advanced certificates. The curricula had to be industry-focused, and we wanted exposure at all levels. We wanted transferable workplace skills and also critical thinking and financial and life skills. So as a part of developing our strategic plan, we looked at responsiveness. We wanted to make sure that we were responding to a need. Collaboration, making sure we were forming those collaborations across private and public sectors, as well as across the educational continuum. Innovation, we wanted to look at innovation and making sure that everyone had that opportunity to look at different alternatives and approaches to career pathways. We continued to align, and we wanted to be accountable, but we also wanted to make sure that we were ensuring the professional development. And through this process, we were able to develop bridge programs and training. We were able to, in our next phase, is to look at integrated career and academic preparation system, which is Illinois' version of the IBEST model in Washington State. And what we wanted to do is blend the basic skills or integrate the basic skills in adult education with career and technical education through a team teaching approach. And this has proven to be very successful. We have 25 colleges at this point that are participating that have integrated pathways in healthcare, manufacturing, transportation, and logistics. Those were our initial but now we're venturing out into other areas and trying to provide additional pathways to individuals. So as you can see on the, we work a lot with the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways and also alignment with college and career readiness standards, aligning curriculum, developing curriculum so that individuals have a clear pathway to occupational sectors. The next slide, this is our career pathway graphic. And what we tried to do as a part of this career pathway graphic is to try to illustrate what we wanted to see in adult education programs. All of this is not set in stone, but what we wanted to show that there was a clear progression of adult education students through the model, understanding that individuals can enter wherever they are, but also exit and go to other areas as well. And as you can see in the center of that circle, transition services, technology skills, and career development are an integral part of every one of the pieces on that wheel. And so what we're trying to do here is take a look at 21st century adult education and career training. And as you notice, we try to break things out in terms of Bridge 1, Bridge 2. Bridge 1 meaning those pre-skills that individuals may or may not be ready for integrated models or even bridge programs, but we want to make sure that we were focusing in on the lowest skilled adults and integrated models. And we purposely put the S on models and not just one model, because there may be others in the future that we may be able to tap into. So I'll go into, in light of all of this information, I will kind of move into some of the challenges of the new WIOA law, given that we have had this perspective. And I do believe, I truly believe that we are in a very good place in Illinois adult education. Are we perfect yet? No, we're not perfect, but I think that we have a head start on a lot of the things that are happening in our WIOA, in terms of WIOA. So the two areas that I want to focus on is the alignment of workforce and education, and also accountability and transparency. Under alignment of workforce and education, one of the challenges will be the Unified State Plan. Adult education has been used to, for years now, submitting our individual state plans. Now we're going to have to work at both the state and the local level to coordinate our services, collaborate, partnership, to make sure that we have a unified state plan that says what the law is stating. Career pathways is a focus, sector strategies is a focus, work-based learning is a focus, employment is a focus. So we want to coordinate with the other four core partners as we move to those areas. We're also looking at curriculum alignment. We need to make sure that employers are a part of the curriculum that we design, specifically as it relates to integrated outcomes or integrated models, as well as bridge programs. Under accountability and transparency, we will have common measures, performance measures, the percent of individuals that are in employment, the measurable skill gains. Also, we're looking at services to employers. We have to measure those things. How are we doing in terms of service, providing those services to employers? There is a strong connection between both of these circles. We're going to have to make sure that what we're doing in the circle on the left is definitely shown in the performance and the measurable skill gain. So some of the opportunities that I see is the opportunity for innovation and dissemination of best practices, not only within the state. I think we can share those promising practices all over our state, but within our region and not only within the regions within Illinois, but our regions with looking at other states. We don't have to reinvent things. There are things out there that are already developed, and I think that there are things in Illinois that we can definitely share with other states. Alignment with ESEA standards, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act standards, the Common Core College Readiness standards. We have already done that, and I think that we're ahead of the game there with alignment, and our individual providers are now developing curriculum, and that's a good thing. The development of career pathways. We have been a leader in this area for a very long time. There's lots of innovative practices that are going on within our adult education programs. Programs are now seeking to look how they can partner with each other in delivery of bridge programs and also integrated models. Those partnerships are going to be key. Working with the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunities, working with the Illinois Department of Employment and Security, and also working with the Illinois Department of Human Services are going to be key. But bringing in other partners as well, community-based organizations as a part of the discussions, our career and technical education partners, community colleges also, our school districts and our regional offices of education. And we're going to have to make sure that we're coordinating services and making sure that there is a seamless line for our students as they enter into each of these areas. And better collaboration between education and also our employers and business. So we see this as a huge need, and as we move forward, there are some key dates that I want you to be aware of, and as I said in the beginning, that things change. So we're going to go with these dates. So anytime between January 18th and sometime in the spring, we will have regulations that will be posted. And then in the fall, anytime between the fall and in January, we will have the final regulations that will be posted. There will be a comment period between the time of the draft regulations being posted and the time that the final regs will come out. And so I would encourage you that if you have comments, that you go to Department of Labor's website as well as the Department of Education's website in order to post those comments. And then we will be doing some things around the state as well to solicit your comments. On March 3rd of 2016, the Unified State Plans will be due. This is all core partners within that state plan. We will also look at the beginning date of this law will be July 1st of 2015, and that's a key date. We will look at possibly a transition period between that time. How do we transition from WIA into WIOA? And those are things that we are actually learning today. I have staff that are on a conference call right now learning about that transition. So I'm sorry I couldn't present that information to you today, but you will hear more information about this.
Thank you, Jennifer. So we're going to do a brief poll quickly before we get to questions. So the question here for you to answer is, my local education and workforce providers have begun initial discussions on forging partnerships since WIOA became law. So please indicate whether you strongly agree with this statement, just agree, are neutral, disagree, strongly disagree, or it's not applicable. And we'll just hold this open for a few seconds to get folks to respond. Just gives us a sense of kind of where you all are in this process, because we know how much is up in the air and how there's lots of information in different places. So, so we're seeing quite a few of you indicating your level of agreement. So everybody, okay, that looks good. We're gonna can we show the results? Look at that. All right, we have a We have a pro-partnership field in Illinois. That's great. 42% of you are already in some kind of discussions on that. That's great to hear. Okay, so we're going to turn to questions, and I think some people already do have questions. So the first thing I want to mention is if your name is called to do a question, you want to hit *7 to unmute your line. So it's *7, and Chris is going to yell out a name.
We have Christina Hutchinson, who has her hand raised.
So Christina, go ahead, just hit *7 to unmute your line. *7, unmute.
We also have Tricia Wagner.
How about Tricia?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I had a question that relates to employability of students that we're all hoping to serve with these partnerships. We're offering integrated pathway programs specifically in manufacturing, and we are seeing that a large number of our applicants and our students are coming to us with major issues that could be barriers to employment. For example, of the 12 individuals that we have worked with our ICAPS programs, 6 have come to us with legal issues, criminal background issues, that kind of thing. And it's sort of been a surprise to us for how we've jumped into action to figure out how to deal with this, how to support them. But you run into all kinds of problems about class attendance and participation, ability to participate. And then, of course, on the other end of it, whenever you're hoping that these individuals, once trained, will be able to get a job, we're concerned about that. And so I was just wondering if this topic of major issues is on the radar as far as what programs or what employers can do if in fact this is representing a significant portion of those 3 million adults that don't have post-secondary training.
Thank you, Tricia. I think that those are very good and valid points. I know that there is lots of discussion that is happening in terms of reentry and how to help individuals to reenter and also obtain employment and working through these integrated models. I think we have an opportunity because at the local level and at the state level, adult education will have a seat on the board. It's one of the core partners. So I really think that as a part of that process, we can talk to employers and businesses because they will be at the table. They will still make up a majority. And I think that is a perfect opportunity to take those questions to the local workforce boards as well as the state workforce boards.
Thank you.
And Tricia, I would just add that the issues that you raised, you may already know this, but they are issues that many of the providers that provide services through Title I are faced with the job seekers that they work with. So there may be, in your area or in other areas, there may be some strategies or services that you could tap into. And this may be the opportunity for some of that partnership to happen more closely for those students.
Thank you. Yes, we are actively seeking support for individuals because some of their needs are beyond what we exactly know what to do with. We have 3 of our 12 have chronic homelessness issues, right. Which sort of enlightens us. I mean, there is a reason why these students haven't yet pursued post-secondary. There's a lot going on with them. And so, I would be interested to see any sort of needs analysis of that 3 million adult population.
Yeah.
How many of those students, have major issues that need to be addressed.
And that will be a part of when we start to write the Unified State Plan, a needs assessment and a needs analysis is a part of that process.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We have a question from Kay Fleming.
So Kay, if you could hit *7 to unmute, and Tricia, just a reminder for you to hit *6 to mute your line now. So Kay, go ahead, *7.
I was just wondering, I know that, the state is going to have a unified plan, but between July 1 and that unified plan, I'm thinking about the transition activities or, what we as programs will be doing to prepare for that plan. We're not going to know everything that the plan includes. So do we just continue on with bridge programming and looking at AO programs and, hope that there aren't any major changes in the unified plan that would disrupt or, cause us to need to make additional changes in what we're doing?
Hi, Kay. This is a question that has been asked a lot, but the Department of Education will provide us with transition language. They will tell us what we need to start working on now, and in anticipation of the regs being finalized or the regulations being released. This is something that we're actually learning today, and so we will be able to share this information with you in the coming months regarding what the transition plan will look like. But you should continue, as we've discussed already, integrated programs and career pathway programs will continue to be a part of those discussions, working with employers as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kay and Tricia, for your questions, and I think we're going to move on now. So just a reminder, if you had your line unmuted, if you could mute it, *6. I'm going to turn over to Mary Kay.
Okay. So I just wanted to set the stage. We've talked about the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways before, and I'll turn over the line here to Judy Mortrude, the director of the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways at CLASP, in just a minute. But also hot off the press, it's interesting. It's like our slides are changing in real time. I was in the car with Jennifer, headed to a morning meeting this morning with the Chicago Jobs Council, and it's like, all right, the WIOA dates are changing and this and that. Well, hot off the press is an update on the ability to benefit. So probably many folks on the line have heard, but we wanted to make sure people were updated. Congressional leaders agreed Tuesday, so just yesterday, on a spending bill that would avoid a government shutdown and provide modest increases to student aid programs and scientific research. So I'm just going to read the blurb that's most pertinent to this crowd. Among the more significant higher education policy changes in the bill is the partial restoration of the Ability to Benefit program. This legislation would allow students without a high school diploma to get federal student aid, financial aid, as long as they are enrolled in a career pathways program at a community college. So for everyone on mute, I just imagine you, yay! So you can all make a lot of noise in your office, your car, yay, your kitchens. Advocates for community colleges, our 90 closest friends on the line. As we all know, we've been pushing really hard, community college and low-income student advocates, to restore this pathway to help students connect to career pathways since Congress eliminated it in 2012, which happened to coincide with the launch of the Alliance of Accelerating Opportunity. Make a plan, and God laughs. So as you can see on the screen, I won't talk through it because I want to give Judy the airtime. This sets up the framework. We know that we need a unified career pathways system. The great news is that there's proven models, and that this national effort, of which Illinois was one of the 10 leader states in the Alliance for Quality Career Pathways over this last year, we've really been able to work with some of the best models and best practices and best partners to work with CLASP around this initiative to identify kind of these required criteria and indicators as a best case scenario for most successful career pathways. And with that, I am really happy to turn the line over to Judy Mortrude at CLASP. Judy, are you unmuted? I wonder if you have muted your own self. We have unmuted you.
Hello.
Just in case. Are you there, Judy?
I am here. Thank you.
Perfect. Just speak up a little bit. Great.
Great. Okay, so let me give you a really quick introduction to the framework. It's quite comprehensive, but I'm going to try to give you some highlights. Starting with the idea that WIOA is constructed of a lot of mays and shalls, but one of the shalls is that state boards and also local workforce development boards shall convene their education partners to develop and implement career pathways in their local areas. And we're really hoping the Alliance and the framework can be your ally in these conversations, that you can get yourself into these conversations as they start up over the next year, and you can rely on some of the information in the framework to really boost your case for serving those adults and youth that have barriers to employment. So as was already mentioned, Illinois was one of the 10 states. Through Jennifer Foster's leadership, Illinois is one of the 10 states who worked together with CLAS to build this career pathway framework. Shortly after the first national dialogue on career pathways at the end of 2011, where it became clear that state administrators and practitioners really wanted more guidance, more definition on career pathway, the Alliance for Quality Career Pathway was formed. CLAS invited these 10 states, partnerships like yours that have been innovating in the career pathway space for a number of years, came together. We're really ready to have this national consensus process to define career pathway programs and pathways and systems. So after about 2 years of meeting and writing and discussing, the Alliance Framework 1.0 was released in April. It consists of 3 main parts: a career pathways program definition and conceptual model, a set of criteria for quality career pathway systems at the state and local regional level, and a menu of career pathway participant metrics, which is really meant to measure the impact of the pathway across agencies and across funding streams. And of course, then WIOA passed and was really codified a career pathway definition into law. Luckily, it's a very solid definition, and that's really, I think, thanks to all the groundbreaking work done by practitioners through initiatives like Shifting Gears, your Illinois Bridge programs, and it's very complementary to the Alliance framework. So the visual you're looking at here is the Alliance Career Pathway definition, which defines a pathway as a series of well-connected education and training programs that result in credentials with regional labor market value and include those support services, work experiences, employment services that serve target populations through multiple entry points and connect to progressively higher levels of education and employment with family sustaining wages. And the key here really is that alignment, those multiple programs align through all of us in our separate systems, doing the hard work to intentionally connect our services so that a person who starts out in any of our training programs can be supported to the next step in the career pathway. So that career pathway image above is really composed of these well-connected programs, which initiate there with the bridge programming. These connected programs also include 4 essential career pathway functions. You can read them here: participant-focused education and training, that federally defined integrated education and training definition, bridge programs, learning communities. Number 2, consistent and non-duplicative assessments, meaning academic assessments as well as assessments for support service needs. As your caller, the question that was raised earlier, assessment for beyond academics, for employability, for background issues, for financial issues, occupationally focused assessment. And WIOA has language specifically allowing the use of shared assessment between collaborating agencies, which I think is going to help us get to that non-duplicative part. Number 3, support services, child care, transportation, those types of support services, plus career navigation. It's very interesting that WIOA doesn't use the words case management anywhere in those several hundred pages. Instead, it uses career counseling, and it asks for a much more intensive form of engagement from the workforce development system with and a longer-term engagement with participants. And number 4, work experiences, employment services, what WIOA now calls career services. If you're familiar with the WIA sequence of service, which went from core to intensive to training, that sequence of services gone under WIOA, and WIOA now has career services and training services, and you do not have to start in one to go to the other. They are really seen as intermixed. All right, so this is not a very fair slide to use over a noon-hour presentation, and I have to give credit to Jim Torrens of the National Networks of Sector Partnerships for the slide, which was one of a series of images that included a picture of Simon and Garfunkel and a bonfire on a beach and popcorn at a movie, and of course this peanut butter and chocolate, as things that are good in their own right, but oh so much better when you put them together. And this is what Alliance partners know about Career Pathways work. Truly, Career Pathways are not something that one entity or agency or program can do alone, and that partners are very essential to the work. And second, that Career Pathway programs and pathways consisting of those programs are good work, changing practice, changing lives. But as good as they are, Career Pathways are so much better when they are supported by Career Pathway systems. And ultimately, the opportunity of WIOA is to build the system, the cohesive combination of partnerships and policies and resources and funding and data and shared performance measures that will support this development, delivery, and scaling of career pathways. So this, again, is a visual from the Alliance framework showing a career pathway like your Illinois Bridge programs, your ICAP pathways, supported by your local system, your state career pathway system, and those 6 criteria that were on the slide Mary Kay showed earlier are the 6 criteria that Alliance has identified as essential to quality system building. And then the framework further defines quality indicators under each one of those. WIOA has a lot of system building elements, both in the career pathway definition that's listed in the law and in other parts of the statute. Things like making it a shall, that career pathways are part of the unified planning. And then the third part of the framework is a menu of metrics for career pathway partners to use in formative evaluation of their programs and pathways. Alliance states felt really strongly that a list of metrics in these 3 categories above, interim outcomes, education and training outcomes, labor market outcomes, would give partners the ability to customize metrics to their own pathways, their own populations, their own programs. And that the primary use of the metrics now is really for continuous improvement efforts, letting partners know what's working, what's not working, so that they can build toward better policies and practices and outcomes for their participants. But really the hardest lift, I think, in this metrics conversation is just identifying who is on a pathway, when do they start it, when do they finish it, how can we find those participants in our data systems. And so that's where a lot of this career pathway participant metrics work is right now. But of course, WIOA is coming, and the WIOA titles will now have new shared accountability measures across them. And again, we feel very gratified after 2 years of working on the framework that the WIOA performance measures as they've come out, at least in law, and as Jennifer stated, we don't have the regulations yet around these, but the definitions as they appear in the law are match up very well with the Alliance metrics, which again, these practitioners from across 10 states said were important as we do this work, important things to measure. So in this second phase of the Alliance work, and again, Illinois is part of this Alliance, state and local partnership teams are using the Alliance self-assessment tools to drive the discussions, hopefully to help with WIOA unified planning at the state and the local level, and also providing evidence from the field on these quality indicators so that we can continue to build a learning community to support this important work as we move into full WIOA implementation. And then these next slides I'm not going to go over. These are really very detailed slides, but they're here for you to take a look at, and we'll also have a link to the full framework.
Thank you so much, Judy. So before we open up the lines for participants to ask Judy some questions or make some comments, we thought we'd take a pulse. Ready, set, WIOA. How ready are you to implement? Yes. Well, we need to talk. So take a minute. Let us know where you think you are with your program at your local, in your region. You can keep responding. The poll's still open. I haven't closed the poll yet, so we can see. I appreciate your candor. All right. Okay, good. It seems like the responses have, well, a couple more folks want to raise their hand and tell us. And as you're responding, I just wanted to echo, because there's so much meat on the bone in Judy's presentation, that we decided to include the specific details on those 3 groups of metrics, the interim outcomes, and I'm just going to pull them up here, the labor market outcomes, obviously, and significantly the pathway education and training outcomes. And, we decided to include that information because just like we're taking the poll now, when we asked in our registration questions, how familiar you are with the AQCP, clearly there were a few of us are like, we got this. We've been on 10 webinars about it. And then many folks, some to none. And so we thought, let's give Judy the bandwidth to give some high-level information and then provide some more details and slides that you can read later. With that, we want to open the lines. I'm going to turn to my colleague Chris Warden here, who's being my wing woman on tech duties. And let's see, do we have anybody whose hand is raised?
We have Jill Blair with a question.
So Jill, *7, unmute, and when you've completed your question comment, *6 to mute yourself again. Thanks, Jill.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, so my question I think is about measurement and accountability, that the impacts we are trying to have on the lives of our students often take months, years to really, impact their earnings potential, their career pathway, all of that. Under the current system, most of our metrics are by fiscal year. So does WIOA really take into account long-term longitudinal measurements and also account for the complications of longitudinal measurements if it does?
Well, I can take a stab at that, and then Jennifer, you can weigh in with what you know. I mean, I imagine that measurement will still be by program year. A couple of maybe positives about the new WIOA measurement. There's something called measurable skill gain, which is, I believe, incenting longer-term service across all of the titles. To stick with participants and to measure people along the pathway and not driving only toward those final outcome measurements. So I think that's very good. There is language about having to break out the demographics, disaggregate your data so that you can see service to high-need populations, however those are defined or evident in the populations in your region, and that there is talk in the law about really incenting service to the hardest to serve and not penalizing. It's an anti-creaming type of attempt to serving the hardest to serve and being able to prove you're serving people in certain demographic categories, have certain kinds of barriers, and that will be valued in the performance measures.
And that's one of the things that we talked about with at the national level, is making sure that instead of skill gains, we want to make sure that skill is actually defined and looking at basic skills. So we wanted to make sure that basic was in there, indicating that we do have some low-skill adults that will not make progress at the rate. one of the things that on the slide, one of Judy's slides, when it compares the related alliance metrics and the performance measure, it talks about second quarter after exit. So if individuals do not exit the program and they're still enrolled in the program because of some of those the situations that you spoke about, being low-skilled adults and maybe not making the progress necessary, they can still be as a part of that. But the metric is after exit. So they will measure at the second quarter after exit of the individual and the fourth quarter as well.
Great. Thank you, Jill. If you could just hit star 6 to mute your line. We've got Tom Du Bois on the line with us today. Hi, Tom. If you just hit star 7, you'll unmute your line and ask your question.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Great. Yes, my question is about apprenticeship programs. There's, I guess, about to be released, perhaps tomorrow, Department of Labor, we call it American Apprenticeship Grants. The state of Illinois a few days ago came out with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Illinois Talent Pipeline Management request for applications in which apprenticeships are an allowable training activity. And Department of Labor even says that they want to align apprenticeships to pathways for further learning and career advancement. So I just wonder what thinking you all might have in that regard. For example, maybe some of the Bridge 1, Bridge 2 programs might become pre-apprenticeship programs with some particular focus on different sectors that they might lead into.
And I think, Tom, I think that leaves it open too. And I think that, when we look back at the Ready to Work report by Vice President Biden, you see the earn and learn philosophy. So I think that, that is going to be something really that's going to be new to some adult education programs in terms of the whole apprenticeship or work-based learning component. So I think at this point, are we able to look at a bridge program and a career and technical education course, especially now that we have ability to benefit back? That's going to be something that we will strongly take a look at. So I think that it's open, and I think we have to look at some innovative practices that we can use in order to we're going to be held to that metric of work-based learning and apprenticeship type programs. So innovation is what we're going to look at. So
thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Tom, for the question. So if you can just hit star 6 to mute your line. I am checking in with Chris. It doesn't look like anyone else has their hand raised, and we're not seeing anything come in the chat bar. We want to respect people's time. We're at 1:30. So if there are no other burning questions, I want to make advertisement for the first webinar that the Pathways to Careers Network will host in 2015. We're working on scheduling that date ASAP, and we'll let you all know. You'll all be invited. So Career Foundations is another hot-off-the-press curriculum. I'm sure many people on the phone are familiar with the Bridge daily lesson plans for healthcare, as well as the transportation, distribution, and logistic lesson plans. Women employed in partnership with city colleges over the last year plus had taken the statewide curriculum, the Bridge curriculum, and built those out to daily lesson plan levels. And many of you have downloaded these materials. You're using them in your classrooms now, supporting Bridge students. An exciting new piece in that portfolio is Career Foundations, making your education work for you. I think the most significant thing, you can see some of the goals of this curriculum on your screen, is that this is one of the first formal pieces where we're really stretching the system down. Jennifer opened the call today reminding us that, Illinois is ahead of the game compared to so many of our sister states by having established Bridge policy. And as many people on the call know, it starts at the 6th grade level and really helps those adult learners prepare to enter that high school level education and then fully transition into college and onto secure employment. So making a note that this curriculum starts at the 4th grade level, can be used at a lot of different levels and mixed level rooms. A lot of exciting work happening around this effort in the City Colleges of Chicago in partnership with a host of community-based organizations. So really, putting our money where our mouth is and walking the talk on forging partnerships. So stay tuned. You will all be invited. With that, I want to say thank you to such a strong showing. Thank you to the participants. You keep signing up. We keep hosting webinars. So, when we launched this in 2012, it was kind of an experiment. And we treated it as a laboratory, and when we kept seeing such a strong response and hunger for more information, Carrie and I were debriefing last week. We started with the bridge policy and took folks really deep into technical assistance to help build the field and help you begin to develop and implement your bridge programs. And now we're bouncing back up to the advocacy level at the state and federal level. So thank you. Many of you have been on darn near almost all of our webinars and continuing our conversations. Many thanks to my partner, Carrie Thomas, for helping plan and organize the webinar today. And obviously, special thanks, big gratitude goes out to Jennifer Foster, who made the trip to Chicago today to be with us for the CJC meeting this morning, and then live in action for the afternoon webinar, and obviously Judy. We wish you were here at the party. Thank you for logging on today and sharing your insights on quality, high-quality career pathway frameworks. So thanks, everybody. We'll hit stop. A survey will pop up, and if you can just take a minute and give some of your feedback, that would be great. Thank you so much.